I was born in London just before the Second World War, 1939, and I lived there until I was almost 20, when I was called up into the army and remained in the army for 9 years, where I met my lovely wife.
I was born in the Midlands in a place called Leicester, but we didn't live there very long because my father was in the army. We moved around a lot, so we went to Germany, we went to the Far East, we went to Northern Ireland, different places. So I really didn't live in one place long enough to say this is where my home is. Mm-hmm. I was simply born there.
So how would you describe your childhood? Because you moved a lot, so it means that you're constantly making new friends and maybe in other schools and all this. How was it?
Yeah, a lot of schools. Yeah. And I ended up, when I was 14, or 15 rather, going to a boarding school in Germany. Mm-hmm. But the good thing about growing up in different places is that when I was very young, I was 4 years old, I lived in Germany not long after the war, and I spoke fluent German because I could speak German before I spoke my own language. So those things are good. Moving around a lot when you get a bit older is a bit unhappy making, because you make friends when you get in, when you get to about 10 or 11 or 12, and you have to then go away again. That's harder. But I now look back and realise how lucky I was to have that wonderful big world and that education. Because when I was 10, when I was 8, I went to live in Malaysia, and I lived there for 2 years. That was a wonderful place. So I'm very lucky to have had the travelling and the places I've been to.
Yes, yes. And what about you, Will? You born in London. It's nowadays it's a huge city. Yeah. And I'm sure that in 1939 it was already a really, really big city.
So I lived through, growing up, all through the bombing of London and the Blitz, and my mother and me, my sisters, were evacuated to the countryside, which was the policy then, to get the children away. And we used to, when the sirens went, we used to go underground and hide.
You were very young.
Yes, but I remember just towards the end, I suppose it was about 1944, 45, something like that. And I can remember the flying bombs, hearing them as we were running for the shelter.
Be about 1945.
And then one actually landed a few roads away from us, and it just blew everything down. And our house was all blitzed and with no windows, doors.
Jesus.
And so we were moved about quite a bit. Mm-hmm. My schooling wasn't very good because all the schools were hit, and so my early schooling was very sparse. Yes. Because there was really nowhere to go.
And when did you enter into the army?
Well, England had national service, which you had to do 2 years, and it was usually at usually at 18, and I was 19, so about 19.
He thought they'd forgotten him.
And as soon as I got into the army, for some reason I loved the discipline, and I signed on. Instead of doing 2 years, I signed on.
Okay.
If he hadn't have signed on, he wouldn't have met me.
That's right, yes. Exactly.
How did you actually met? How is this story?
Well, exactly. I almost ran. Wendy was walking across the road, sort of dreaming and not looking where she was going, and I may have been distracted or something, and I suddenly, nearly, I had swerved to miss her, and I tooted my horn.
I was 15. I was 15 years of age.
I tooted the horn on the car and I sort of drove on, sort of saying something.
Made a few bad words.
And then one evening...
No, we were in this bus. I was in the bus with my mother, yes.
And I was with some friends and we were going into the main town in Germany, a place called Munster. And we were going to the army cinema in the town. And I said to a couple of my friends, I said, oh, that stupid girl I nearly ran over the other day. And someone said, well, do you know who that is, don't you? And I said, no. And they said, oh, that's...
You told him I was the daughter,
that's the bandmaster's daughter. And I went, oh, God. Yeah. And
so you came up to me on the bus and said sorry for shouting.
And I apologised.
Okay.
And then the next time we saw each other was
a
dance, an all ranks dance in the camp, and my friend said, "It's that girl again," and he said, "Go and ask her for a dance." So
I'm 16 now, I think. Yeah, and yes, I say I'm 16.
So I had to go and ask her father if I could dance with his daughter. And he sort of
very
said,
old-fashioned, isn't it?
He sort of said,
You
"Who are
can't
you?"
imagine it being like this today.
And I told him my name and rank, and he said, "Well, you better go and ask her."
Okay.
And that was it, really. And we've been.
This is
So
59 years ago.
Yes.
59 years ago.
You actually
This year we
after
will
the-
have 56 years married.
56 years
56.
married.
Yeah, this year.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So how did you decide to come to Portugal?
Well, when we were first
The happy days
married,
of small children.
when we had our 2 children, my boss had a huge villa in the
Montchique.
Algarve, in Montchique.
Montchique in the Algarve.
And every year he used to say, go and have a holiday. And we did in the 70s, and we were actually in Portugal when you had the revolution here with our children. And the soldiers came down the mountain. We were up near Foyer, that's where the villa was.
Foyer Montchique.
So you were here in 1974?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a totally different Portugal.
Yeah.
People were washing clothes in the rivers, and it was only donkeys, there was no electricity, no telephone, nothing. And
It was wonderful.
but it was wonderful.
It was wonderful, and that's the reason when we thought, well, we'd been in France for 10 years. France had started to become a bit of an expensive place to live, and we were going to move to a different part of France. And then I said, why don't we go to live in Portugal? We already had a friend who runs a big estate agency in Montchique, and he says, you should come to Portugal. So we came to Portugal, and we came here and we bought a house in Tomar. But that's the house that had the swimming pool and a big lot of land. And then we decided that it was too much work, and that's how we ended up here.
So,
And this place was really just by chance.
Okay.
We were visiting around, and we were all around Caldas and all the area of it, looking at houses.
Right from Porto down we were looking, you know.
We used to fly into either Porto, hire a car, make some dates with estate agents, various places. And we came to
By accident we
Mayor.
came here and we saw that
and
there
this
was a
was
house
the
for
last
sale.
one, wasn't it? We'd looked at about 6 or 7 houses during the day, and this was the last one on the list. We were very tired,
And we walked in and we knew
and as soon as we walked in, we thought, oh,
this is the right
this is
house.
the house for
Wow.
us.
You know, it was a good place to live our last years.
Yes. Yeah. And how do you think that the community here in Arrouquelas received you? If that actually happened, how do you think that people?
Fantastic.
Absolutely wonderfully well.
Best, it wasn't just the house, you see, as soon as we came here, people came to the door with wine,
Really?
with everything,
Yes.
and the people here are so good. And they know we don't speak very good Portuguese, although we try, but we're getting old and it's remembering it. It's difficult enough, but remember, I learned to speak quite a good bit of French, but coming here, it was very difficult. But everybody is so kind and helpful, and they give us their eggs and they give us their produce. So twice a year, before COVID, we would have a party here.
Oh.
You know, in the summer and at Christmas, in between Christmas. We have a big party and everybody comes. Alex, these neighbours. We have like 30, last time we had 35 people in here with outside eating. And so this is our way that we give back.